Most of us of a certain age will remember the entertainer Jack Benny. Jack was a very famous celebrity, but he started out in the Midwest, in Waukegan, Illinois. He was very proud that in his hometown they named the school after him, the Jack Benny School. Each time he visited his hometown, he made a point of going to that school and addressing the students. One day he was in the classroom of 12-year-olds, and one of them asked him a question. "Mr. Benny, why did they name you after our school?" Be careful with 12-year-olds. Today we hear of another 12-year-old, the 12-year-old Jesus, posing questions to the elders in the temple, and we can imagine their consternation and embarrassment at the questions the child must have been posing. I often wonder what those questions may have been. This was, after all, a very remarkable child, with undoubtedly remarkable questions. But the most poignant question that boy posed on that day was the one he directed to his parents. "Why were you looking for me?" I used to know an elderly lady. Over 50 years before, her daughter had disappeared. Maybe she ran away. Maybe she was abducted. Maybe she died somewhere and was never found. Even after so many years, her mother spent all her hours looking for her. She would go down the streets and ring doorbells and ask, "Have you seen my daughter?" She would pose the same question to anyone she saw. "Have you seen my daughter?" Every evening she would sit at the living room window waiting for her return. Each time a car came down the street, a ray of hope would flicker in her heart that perhaps this was the daughter returning. But the daughter never returned. Whenever I visited the lady, her first question was always, "Have you seen my daughter?" This had become her purpose of living, looking, searching for her daughter. Any parent who has ever lost a child for even 5 minutes will know the anguish of such a mother in search of her child. These parents, too, can understand the great anguish in the hearts of Mary and Joseph when for 3 days they did not know where their child was. Those must have been the longest 3 days of their life. How filled with fear their hearts must have been. At last they find the child in the temple talking to the elders. Astonished, they ask, "Why have you done this to us? We have been so worried about you." His answer is a question. "Why have you been looking for me?" That question is directed not only to Mary and Joseph, but to each of us. Why have you been looking for me? Each of us is looking for something we have lost. Perhaps it is lost innocence. Perhaps we no longer look at the world with the simple eyes of a child, but rather with adult cynicism. We have lost that innocence of childhood, and perhaps we are seeking to recover something of that. We are looking for what is lost. Perhaps it is lost beauty. There are many people my age and older who were once quite good-looking and no longer are so. We all know people who desperately seek to recover that lost beauty, and the economy of Beverly Hills is kept alive by professionals trying to restore it, often with disastrous results. People are trying to regain what they once had and have lost. Perhaps it is a lost faith. Perhaps we no longer have faith in ourselves. Perhaps we no longer have faith in something higher, in God. Perhaps we have lost our faith in humanity. That faith was once a consolation to us, but we've lost it, and maybe we are looking for it. Once I moved away from a place where I had been for many years. I lost at that time some of my prized possessions that had been given to me over the years by people very dear to me. To this day I have no idea where these things are, and I would so like to find some of those things again. There were people in my life whom I knew and loved decades ago. How I would love to find some of them again, just to know what became of them, or perhaps even to reestablish a friendship. We have all lost something that we are trying to find again. And the Christ directs his question to us. Why were you looking for me? The answer to that question is different for each of us. Why were you looking for me? Has life wounded you? And are you perhaps in need of a physician? Is that why you are looking for me? To patch up the hurt a little? Are you perhaps curious about the deep questions of life? The really deep questions that are so simple and omnipresent, such as, why am I here? Such as, why does one person live one day on this earth and another person 100 years? Questions such as, why is there war and hunger and suffering in this world? You want answers to the puzzles of life. Is that why you are looking for me? Perhaps you are trying to get in touch again with the child inside of you. Is that why you were looking for the Christ child? Why were you looking for me? Perhaps you realized that it was I who was missing in your life. Something higher in your life was no longer there. Perhaps you have become tired of just the day-to-day routine, the boredom of everyday earthly existence, and realize that there must be something more than that, something or someone more than that. Is that why you were looking for me? The 12-year-old child in the temple poses that same question to all of us. Why have you been looking? And why have you been looking precisely for me? The search is over. The Christ tells his parents and us, do you not know that I am right here in my Father's house, right here everywhere, in every house and every heart where love finds a home? Why were you looking for me? Did you think I had abandoned you? Did you think I was not here with you the whole time? Why were you looking for me? We don't have to look far and wide. If our hearts form the abode of love, let's look merely inside ourselves, and there, like Mary, like Joseph, we too will find God.